Right, so this is a very quick whistle-stop tour over the various benefits that people with hereditary spastic paraplegia may be interested in, or if they've got someone in their family who has this condition. First slide. Now, as I say, it's a very brief introduction. There are four main types of benefit that I think you're going to be interested in. First one's disability benefits. Next one is sickness benefits. Third one, if you're on a low income. And the last one, if you're a carer or you have someone in your, someone who is caring for someone with HSP. So to go through each of these, the disability benefits, which one you go for is determined by how old the claimant is. So for children under 16, it's disability living allowance. If you're over 16 but still of working age, that's personal independence payment. And then above that, above retirement age, it's attendance allowance that you'd apply for. The next ones are sickness. And if you become ill while you're employed, you can get statutory sick pay usually. There are exceptions to that. I'll go through each of these benefits a little later on. New style employment and support allowances for people who aren't able to get sick pay or have run out of their 28 weeks of sick pay. I've put new style job seekers allowance in there for the sake of completeness. This benefit is for people who are of working age, are too ill to be able to work at their original job, but might be looking to be employed at doing something else. Having said that, some people or organisations like employers, shops, local authorities and schools must take positive steps to remove the barriers you face because of your disability. So to ensure you receive the same services as far as possible as someone who's not disabled, and that's required by the Equalities Act 2010, and that's called the duty to make reasonable adjustments. Now, moving on, for information and further support. This is just a very quick overview today. We've got a very good website. It's citizensadvice.org.uk. If you put Citizens Advice into Google, scroll on past anything that says ad at the beginning, and you should be able to find citizensadvice.org.uk. If someone's trying to make you pay for something, you're on the wrong site. We're free. Sadly, you will find people pay Google to get put above kosher sites like Citizens Advice and offer to give you advice, but you'll need to pay for it. So watch out for that. The other really obviously good reputable site is gov.uk. If you know specifically what information you want, gov.uk is good. If you're not sure specifically what you want, but you know roughly what you want and the sort of thing you're trying to find information out about, then Citizens Advice is probably a better site to go to. Of course, if all else fails, do try and find your local Citizens Advice office. All you need to do to find your local Citizens Advice office or to find any sort of support from us is use our website, citizensadvice.org.uk, and put contact into the search box. It's that easy. And then you'll be directed, depending on what sort of information you need, as to which is the best way to contact us. All right, to backtrack a bit to the disability benefits. The first one is disability living allowance, and this is for children generally, unless you're already on it as an adult. If you're already on it as an adult and you're past retirement age, you will stay on disability living allowance. If you're over 16, you will be asked by the DWP to transfer onto PIP. But in the short term, applying to children, it's DLA. And you can get DLA if they need a lot more care, attention or supervision than a child of the same age who isn't disabled. or if they have difficulty walking or getting around outdoors in unfamiliar places, compared to a child of the same age who isn't disabled. Now, you can't get that mobility component for someone who's under 3 because generally they won't walk around very well anyway, and they wouldn't do it unsupervised in somewhere they didn't know. Your child, this is the last one, your child must have been disabled or had the condition for at least 3 months. Now, in the case of a hereditary condition, that's probably going to be from birth. The argument is going to be about whether it has affected the child for at least 3 months, and it needs to be expected to last for another 6. Okay, the payments. Now, DLA is paid in 2 parts. There are 2 components, the care component and the mobility component. Each of those components is paid at different rates. And you might get one or both components depending on the type of care your child needs. You only have to do one application. It's just fill in the one DLA form for all of it. The 2 components are the care component, and that's paid weekly, and these are the rates, the higher rate, the middle rate, the lower rate. The mobility component is also paid weekly, and there are 2 rates there, higher rate and lower rate, and you'll want to know how you get each of these rates. You get the higher rate of £92.40 a week if your child either needs care or supervision frequently throughout the day and night, or if they've been diagnosed as terminally ill. Now, I'm not expecting that to be the situation for people who predominantly have HSP. If you get the middle rate, it's because your child needs care or supervision throughout either the day or the night, not both. Or if they get renal dialysis twice or more a week. Now, I know that people with HSP can have urinary problems, but I'm not expecting in most cases that it would need dialysis. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. The lower rate, £24.45 a week, if your child needs extra care throughout some of the day or night, but at least an hour. But it's not frequently, so that's the difference between lower, middle and higher. It's the amount of care that they need and whether it's day and night or just during the day. The mobility component. Now, the higher rate is given to children with severe physical conditions or a condition that means it's dangerous for them to get around alone. So if they were cognitively impaired and didn't understand about hazards crossing a road, for instance, then they would get the higher rate. The lower rate is for children who can just about walk but have difficulty getting around places, especially if they don't know them very well. How do you claim this? Now, in each case, I'm going to be saying you can phone DWP for an application form. You could download one and have a go at filling it in yourself, but the reason you phone is because payments are backdated to the date you phoned. If you download an application form, you only start your claim from the date that the DWP gets the form, and that can be considerably later. So it's a good idea to phone. That's when your payments will be backdated to if the claim is awarded. Here's how you do it. Telephone that number. Please, this form is complicated. If you know someone who is well experienced at doing DLA forms, fine, you can go with them. Or if you know another local charity who can help you, great. Otherwise, please do get some help to do these forms. So Citizens Advice, contact your local Citizens Advice for help to do it. Okay, on to the next benefit, and this is the one we see most because most people fall into the working age category. To get PIP, or Personal Independence Payment, you must have found it hard to do everyday tasks or get around because of a physical or mental condition, and you must have had that problem for at least 3 months and expect it to continue for another 9 months. Now, just like DLA, there's this before and after requirement. DLA was you had to have it for 3 months and expected to last another 6. For PIP, it's you had to have it for 3 months and expected to last another 9. You're assessed on the level of help you need, in this case, with specific activities. So there's 10 daily living activities that are quoted in the law, and you are assessed against each of those 10 daily living activities. There's a further 2 mobility activities, and you're assessed against those statements. Now, when it says you need help, the help you need might be from a person, or it might be an aid, such as a walking stick or grab rails or a raised toilet seat or a guide dog, or it might be some electronic gadgetry that we don't know about. It might be an adaptation to your home or car. If you get help with any of these activities, which are coming up in the next slide, you should consider applying. Now, these are the activities. Preparing and cooking food. If you find that difficult because of your condition, you might be entitled to some points. And if you get over 8 points in total for either component, the daily living activities or mobility, you get an award. If you get over 12 points, you get the enhanced award for that component. So here are the activities: preparing and cooking food, eating and drinking, managing your treatments, washing and bathing, managing toilet needs or incontinence, that could be very relevant, dressing and undressing, if that's difficult for you, if it hurts to do it, if you get help from someone else to do it, that could be points there as well. Communicating with other people, reading and understanding written information. The next one is mixing with others. And then the last one in this section, making decisions about money. Those are the 10 daily living activities. If any of those are difficult for you, you might be entitled to PIP. The last 2 are the mobility statements. So we've got planning a journey or following a route. Now that's your mental ability to get out of the house and go somewhere. The last one is moving around, and that's purely your physical ability in moving around, getting about on your feet. How do you claim it? I hope by now you're going to guess that I'm going to tell you you need to phone. That's the way to do it. Contact DWP. Over the phone, they will fill in something called a PIP1 form. You usually won't see that. This is just to check that you are eligible to claim. So if you're the wrong age group, then they'll tell you. If you're an immigrant and you can't get recourse to public funds, they'll tell you. If you are automatically disqualified for some reason, like you fell down the stairs last week and you've broken your leg, but it's probably going to be okay in another few months, then they'll tell you not to apply. There's the telephone number. Now, if they agree that you are eligible to claim, they will send you a very large form called the PIP2, or otherwise known as How Your Disability Affects You. You can get that by paper form, by post, or they'll send you an email link to an online form. Either way, it's a horrible form to fill in. Please do get help to fill that form in. After you've submitted that form with any medical evidence you've got, you'll be invited to go to a medical assessment, probably 2 or 3 months later. This is a long process. As it says, it can take up to 6 months from when you first contact DWP to get your first payment, but they do backdate it if they agree that you should have your claim awarded. Here are the rates of payments. Now, I have put on the bottom of each slide, I've put the date. Everything I'm telling you, the law is correct today, the dates are correct today, the amounts of the awards are correct today. They may not be in the future, just a caveat. Things do change. The last disability benefit for people who are over pension age, you must need attention. So this is attendance. You need to be attended by other people for something. So it's attention from another person or supervision from another person or another person to watch over you to keep you safe for some reason. There are two conditions, the day condition and the night condition. If the day condition is satisfied if a person is so severely disabled physically or mentally that they need from another person frequent attention through the day in connection with bodily functions or continual supervision throughout the day in order to avoid substantial danger to themselves or others. The night condition is satisfied if someone is so severely disabled physically or mentally that at night they require prolonged or repeated attention in connection with bodily functions from another person, or again, another person to be awake for a prolonged period or at frequent intervals for the purpose of watching over them in order to avoid substantial danger to themselves or others. So you must need someone to be in attendance to get attendance allowance. How do you claim? Yeah, you've guessed. It's a phone call, please. You could download a form and fill it in yourself and then send it, but they will only treat that claim as starting once they get the form from you. So you're better off phoning first. In order to get attendance allowance, you have to have had supervision or care needs for at least 6 months before you can get this benefit. There are two rates, the lower rate and the higher rate. If you need attendance during either the day or night, you get the lower rate. If you need both, it's the higher rate. So that is if you need supervisional help day and night. All right, so those were the disability benefits. Next, we're going on to the benefits that you might be entitled to if you're sick and you can't work. The first one's statutory sick pay. If you are an employee, you're not self-employed, then you are legally entitled to get statutory sick pay if you've started work for your employer, if you've been off work for 4 full days in a row, and if you earn at least £123 a week before tax. Don't worry about the ineligible categories. That's people like the police force and the armed forces, and they have different rules about being too sick to work, and people in that situation will be well aware of what the situation is. I've never come across one in 10 years. Most employers are good at managing statutory sick pay. Employees need to know that they must follow their employer's rules for getting sick pay. If, for instance, they require you to tell them on the first day that you're sick and you don't, they have an argument for not giving you sick pay until you actually let them know that you're sick. That's just an example. They have to behave reasonably, as most employers would, or you could potentially take them to a tribunal. But on the whole, employers are very good at managing statutory sick pay. And it's $99.35 a week at the moment for 28 weeks. You may also get contractual sick pay, and it's worth checking your contract if this is you to check to see if you're entitled to anything there. You might get paid sick pay for longer. You might get an extra amount. I've also put in new style employment support allowance here. Now, if you've had your 28-week sick pay, you may not be able, well, you won't be able to get sick pay anymore. You might still need some support. That would be employment support allowance. You can't always get new style employment support allowance. The rules are complicated, and I'm not going to go into an awful lot of detail here, but I'll skate over it. You can't get statutory sick pay and employment support allowance at the same time, but if you know that your condition's not going to get better, you know when your last day of sick pay is going to be, you can claim employment and support allowance 3 months early. And it's a good idea to do that because, again, like the disability benefits, it takes a long time for a claim to be put in place. And you want it to be in payment as soon as your sick pay runs out. The different thing here is that even if you were not entitled to statutory sick pay because you were self-employed, you are entitled to employment support allowance. And the application process is just the same. This is all contribution based. So in order to claim this benefit, new style employment and support allowance, you have to be of working age. You have to meet the national insurance conditions. Now these are complicated. Here is a brief overview of the national insurance conditions. Basically, if you've worked for an employer for more than 2 years, you're likely to have met these conditions and can apply for new style employment and support allowance. If you apply, DWP will check for you whether you've met these conditions or not. You can check for yourself by going to gov.uk, but it's a bit complicated. So there's the basic national insurance condition. You can check on gov.uk. You might have got national insurance credits to fill gaps in your payments. So if you were getting benefits because you weren't working or you were ill, these can fill in those gaps. You meet the national insurance conditions if you've got full contributions for 2 tax years, for 2 full tax years before your illness, or it's complicated, 1 full year of contributions for employment or self-employment and the other full year from national insurance credits. If you don't think you meet those conditions, apply anyway. There's nothing to be lost. DWP will check to see if you are entitled or not. Even if you don't qualify, you'll still get national insurance credits if you have limited capability for work. So if they agree that you don't qualify for this, but you are ill enough to have qualified if your national insurance conditions had been satisfied, then they will pay you national insurance credits, and those credits might help you to claim other benefits in the future, and they count as contributions to your state pension. As I say, all of this is probably a bit complicated and it's probably going whoosh, but if you've at least heard about it beforehand, when you come across it, you'll have a clue about what's going on. Please do contact your local citizens advice for more help on this if you need to. Right, so new style ESA payments, it's £77 a week for a single person if you're aged 25 or over. There are different amounts if you're under 25 or if you're one of a partnership. After 3 months after your claim, the DWP will assess you. Now, this is another medical assessment, and even if you've got a disability payment, you'll still have to do this medical assessment as well. It's separate and they're looking for different criteria. They put you in one of 2 groups, work-related activity group or the support group. They've now got new names, so there's the limited capability for work group or the limited capability for work-related activity group. And which group you're in affects how much ESA you get. Now, if you're in that work-related activity group, now known as the Limited Capability for Work group, you get £77 a week for up to a year. If you're in the support group, you get extra money, and the period of time is not limited until your conditions, until the qualifying characteristics change. So if you've got a change of circumstances, you need to always inform DWP anyway. It might be that you change from one group to another. Anything that could affect your benefit, you need to let DWP know that there's a change of circumstances. How to claim. Aha, you don't have to phone. This time you can apply online for New Style ESA, and it's on gov.uk. And then they'll get you to fill in an online form. If you can't manage the online form, then yes, there's a phone number. It's the same as the Universal Credit Hotline number, because New Style ESA is sort of part of Universal Credit. So don't be put off by that. That's the right telephone number. They will assess you. They will send you an assessment form. It's another one like the PIP form and the DLA form. Please get some help to complete that form. Once they've got it, they will invite you for a medical assessment. After that, they will let you know what the results are, and you either will or won't get the benefit. I've put this next one in for the sake of completeness. New Style Jobseekers Allowance. Now, if you meet those contribution conditions with the national insurance payments, then fine, you can get this New Style Jobseekers Allowance. This one is particularly for people who have decided that they're not up to the job they were doing, but they might be up to doing another job. So you can claim this one if you've got your Class 1 national insurance paid up for the last 2 or 3 years, and of course if you're of working age. You can get it if you're still doing some work, but the amount you earn is taken off the allowance. You must be available to work full-time, and you must actively be looking for full-time work. You can't get it if you're in full-time education. You may have come across income support. That is one of those legacy benefits that aren't, you can't make a new application for a legacy benefit, but some of you may already be on income support and know what I'm talking about here. If you're eligible, you can get personal allowance of 6105 if you're under 25 and 77 if you're over 25, and those are weekly amounts. Now, the exact amount you get here is going to depend on your individual circumstances. You may have an income from somewhere else. You may be earning some money. You may have a pension because you've taken early retirement but still be of working age. You may have savings that are assumed to give you some income. How do you claim? Again, New Style Jobseekers Allowance on gov.uk. If you are applying for anything, make sure you take records of whatever dealings you've had with DWP. If you send them a letter, keep them a copy. If you send them a form, make sure you photocopied it or got at least screenshots before you put it in the post to them. If you apply for something online, take a screenshot or take a photo using your phone's photo capability. If you can't apply online, then you could call the Job Centre Plus, and there's the telephone number. Okay, universal credit. If you've become too ill to work, you'll find your income has suddenly dropped and you don't have enough to live on, perhaps. If that's the case for you, you could apply for universal credit. This is the main means-tested benefit these days for people of working age. It can top up your contribution-based New Style benefits. So if you were claiming one of those and still didn't have enough money to live on, this can top it up. There's no set level of income. It depends on all of your situation as to exactly how much universal credit you might be able to get. You must be of working age. You must live in the UK. You must be entitled to claim UK benefits. So if you're not a British citizen, there might be other difficulties. You may not be able to do it, or you might, depending on what basis you're in the country. You have to have less than 16,000 in savings. If you've got more than that, the government will expect you to live on your savings until they've gone down below 16,000. They stop taking account of your savings if they go below 6,000. Between 6,000 and 16,000, there will be some money taken off your award because you should be living on your savings instead of claiming benefit. If you live with a partner, their income and savings will be taken into account. So quite often you can get someone who suddenly can't work at all, has to be kept by their partner. If they're working full time, they might well earn enough money that you don't get to claim any income-based benefits. Oh yeah, there you go. Similarly, if you live with your parents, for instance, your parents aren't going to chuck you out. The DWP will say you're not required to pay rent. You're not going to be evicted if you don't pay rent. Therefore, we won't give you a housing element. There are ways around that, but this is the general rule. You can get universal credit if you're self-employed. The same process whether you were employed or self-employed. Depends on how much work you do as to whether you're entitled to any universal credit as well. How do you apply? Again, this is online. A lot of applications are online. Oh, it's telling me my battery's running low. I'm just going to go and plug it in. Excuse me a moment. Right, husband to the rescue in the background. Thank you. Right, so can you put your thumbs up if you're still with me? Right, brilliant. So yes, you're applying for universal credit on gov.uk. They will make you set up an online account. Yeah, that's fine. And you'll need to run your account online. It can be complicated. If you're not very good at managing the internet, Citizens Advice can help you to set up your initial claim. Please do apply for universal credit as soon as you can. The sooner you apply, the sooner you get your first payment. There's 5 weeks between you first applying and your first payment, and that's a long time to live on thin air. The only exception here is that you should wait until the day after your final wages or any holiday pay from work before you apply, and that's because otherwise that final payment from work will be taken as wages, will be taken as income, and it will reduce your universal credit for the first month. So if you're getting any money from work, wait until that final payment's been made before you apply. If you get paid after you apply for universal credit, oh, I've just said that. Right, next one. The only time this doesn't apply is if you've been made redundant. Redundancy pay doesn't count as income, so you should apply as soon as you get your final payment other than redundancy pay from your employer. Redundancy pay doesn't affect how much you get, except if it takes your savings over 6,000, then it will start reducing the amount of universal credit you get. Help to claim. Yes, our advisors can help you with that first stage. Up to your first payment, they will help you claim. They'll help you through the whole process. They can help you work out if you're entitled to get universal credit, fill in the application and prepare you for your first job centre appointment and check that your first payment is correct. You can do this by talking to Citizens Advice on the phone. There's the phone number. The phone numbers are different depending on which country you're in. Online chat you can also do, and that's the website to go to for help to claim. Okay, these are the elements that make up universal credit. You get a standard amount depending on your age and whether you live with someone else or not. If you pay rent, there's a housing element. There can also be some help if you have a mortgage to pay. If you've got children, that means you get an extra amount as well. If you have to have your children in childcare, there can be a payment for that. If you're sick or disabled, there's an extra element in universal credit added on. And the same applies if you're a carer. So it is worth having a look to see if you're entitled to universal credit. I've said a little bit more about the sickness element of universal credit here. As I say, it can increase the amount of universal credit you get. If you are deemed to be sick or disabled, you won't have to look for work if you get universal credit. You do have to explain how your condition affects you, and it's another form like the New Style ESA form. It's called a UC50. Otherwise, it's completely identical, and the criteria for getting those two elements, the limited capability for work or the limited capability for work-related activity, are just exactly the same. If the DWP say you've got limited capability for work, you don't have to work, but you might have to do some regular tasks to get ready for work, like turning up to talk to them regularly, training, writing a CV. There's all sorts of things that you can be expected to do if they think you're going to be able to go back to work of some sort. If they decide you can't work and you shouldn't be asked to do anything to do with work, then you get limited capability for work-related activities, and it's an extra £354.28 a month. Claiming that. Claim it as soon as you can, as soon as when you're going through the universal credit claim. If you're getting universal credit already, and you then discover that you're too ill to work, you report a change of circumstances on your online account. If you can't do that, phone them up, tell them. I've put, pension credit. This is the last of the means tested benefits that I've put in here. And this is for people, as you can tell from the title, this is for people who are past pension age. It's the other means tested benefit to boost your income if you've got a low income. There's two parts to it, guarantee credit and savings credit. You might get one or both parts. The guarantee credit is the really important one. It tops up your weekly income to a minimum amount. If you have some small income or savings, and if you reached state pension age before the 6th of April 2016, they also did this savings credit thing, which was a sort of well done for looking after yourself, well done for saving some money, here's some more. That's a very unusual way for the DWP to behave. They don't normally give you money if you've got some. So they no longer offer you this except if you reached state pension age and were entitled to it from before the 6th of April 2016. Why is it important to claim pension credit? Apart from the extra income that pension credit itself gives you, there are premiums attached to pension credit. If you get other benefits such as carer's allowance, disability living allowance, personal independence payment or attendance allowance, your weekly guarantee credit amount can go over the minimum income threshold of 182.60, which is where the government would normally top you up to with pension credit anyway. If you're eligible, you can get an extra amount for severe disability of an extra £69.40 a week. If you're a carer, there's a carer's premium of £38.85. So you can get that if you or your partner get carer's allowance or have claimed for it and meet its conditions. So it's a good idea to check the pension credit calculator on gov.uk before applying. It's quite an easy one, this one. This pension credit calculator is pretty straightforward. If you're confident in using the internet, you'll be okay using this one. It'll tell you whether you're eligible or not and how to apply. And again, you apply online if you can, or there's a phone number. And carer's allowance, last but not least. this might apply to some of you. You can usually get carer's allowance if you're 16 or over, in other words, of working age, not in full-time education, and if you spend at least 35 hours a week caring for a disabled person, in other words, if this is equivalent to a full-time job. Also, it's limited, you have to not already be earning more than £132 a week after deductions. Also, of course, you have to not be subject to immigration control that would otherwise stop you getting benefits. If you're not entitled to public funds, you're not entitled to this either. The person you're caring for must be getting one of these benefits. So it's attendance allowance, constant attendance allowance, which I haven't touched on before, disability living allowance at the middle or highest rate for care component. In other words, if they've demonstrated they need care, you could be a carer. Also, the daily living component of personal independence payment. Again, this is the equivalent of the care component, but in personal independence payment. It's the mobility bit's not relevant here. It's just whether they need care or not. But if your family member or friend gets any care component of DLA or PIP, then you could be a carer if you meet the other conditions. There's also another payment called Armed Forces Independence Payment. Again, I'm not touching on that one because that's quite rare. I'm going to move on there. Credits. Again, if you care for a person for at least 20 hours a week, you might be able to get carers credits. Now, those are credits that fill in the gaps in the national insurance record. And I've mentioned this sort of thing before. And that decides whether you can get state pension. It tops up your contributions. It also possibly enables you to claim New Style ESA if that becomes relevant to you. So the fact that you were caring for someone else means that you might be able to get this benefit where otherwise you might not. Same with contribution-based New Style Jobseekers allowance. So these carers credits are national insurance contributions. Overlapping benefits. Now, some benefits are income replacement benefits. Carers allowance is one of those. If you get another income replacement benefit, you can't get carers allowance at the same time. So if you're getting state retirement pension, that's to replace your income. You're no longer earning money. You can't get carers and state retirement pension. Same if you're getting contributory ESA. You can't be a carer and say that you're getting contributory ESA because they're both income replacement benefits. The same with a contribution-based JSA or maternity allowance, which I've just put in for the sake of completeness there. If your carer's allowance is the same or less than the other benefit, you get the other benefit, but carer's allowance can't be topped up. So if the other benefit's less than you would get for carer's allowance, you get the other benefit and you get the balance topped up in carer's allowance. So when I said you can't get both, you can get some of both. The rules are complicated. If you think you're going to be in this situation, please get some help from your local citizens advisor to check what you can and can't get. Again, there are carers elements on universal credit. So I did mention this earlier. If you're entitled to carers allowance, even if you don't get it, you can get the carers premium added to your universal credit. And the same applies to pension credit, income-based job seekers, income-related ESA, or income support. These are the old benefits now, the legacy benefits that I haven't mentioned. There are a lot of them. So these income-based or income-related benefits, including housing benefit and council tax support, you can get an extra amount if you're being paid those. If you are also entitled to get the carer's allowance, even if you don't get paid it. It is complicated. How do you claim this? You can claim carer's allowance online. You could download and print a carer's allowance claim form and fill it in and send it by post, but that's the long way round to do it, and your benefit would only start once they got the completed form. So if you can, do it online. Unfortunately, I know I've been saying phone first, but this time you can't do the claim by phone. So if you need some help to do this, citizens' advice, please. If you need help making your claim, they are supposed to help you, but they won't do the claim for you. They will tell you how to go about doing it. And that's the telephone number if you need help to do it. You can backdate your claim for carer's allowance for up to 3 months. Now that's useful because getting the disability payments in place can take many months. You can backdate for up to 3 months once you discover that the person claiming the disability benefit is entitled to it. Once that's in payment, you can get it back, your payment for carer's allowance backdated for up to 3 months. Now, this is an important bit. There are ways of finding out what benefits you specifically are entitled to without having to go and claim anything, without even talking to citizens' advice. Oh yeah, please do this. Do check for yourselves whether you're entitled to a benefit. There are lots of benefits I haven't been able to tell you about because this is a whistle-stop tour through the benefit system. There are billions of unpaid, unclaimed benefits every year, which is a bit shocking. And that's according to Entitled To, which is a website, but I've seen that number lots of times all over the place. Please do a benefit check for yourself. Entitled To have a very nice, easy to use online benefit checker. Also, the other place to go for a nice, easy to use benefit checker is Turn to Us. So if you just put Turn to Us into Google, it will come up with this website. Again, if you have trouble using these, or you're not confident using the internet, or you just want some extra reassurance or some help with anything, please don't hesitate to contact Citizens Advice for further help and information and support. I've added in a little bit here. Sometimes the DWP get it wrong. Sometimes you will apply for a benefit, and as you go through the form, if you've done it with an advisor, they might be saying, I think you should get this award. If the DWP think differently, feel free to challenge them. They do get it wrong. You can challenge it. You've normally got 1 month from the date of the decision letter to challenge a DWP or HMRC decision. If they still won't change their minds, and they usually don't, unless you supply compelling additional medical evidence, then you could take them to a tribunal. This all takes months and months, but if your advisor has told you, yes, I think you should be getting this benefit, please do persist. It is worth doing. There are other benefits that I haven't talked about, and there are different mechanisms. Anytime you get a decision on a benefit, it should say on the decision letter whether you can appeal it or not and how to go about it. As I say, time limits apply. Last slide. Hooray! This has only been very quick. There's not much detail. As I say, the information here is time dependent. Everything changes. I haven't talked about lots of other benefits, and you may already be on another benefit that I haven't mentioned. Please don't worry about that. That's probably fine. There is an issue if you are thinking of switching from one benefit to another. You may be worse off, and you may then not be able to go back again. So if you get the option to switch rather than be forced to switch, then please do get some advice first. You must always tell whoever pays your benefit if there's any change of circumstance. That means if your condition gets better or worse, but it also means if you change your bank account or if you move house, anything that could change or affect your payment, you've got to tell them. Yeah. Now, if you want help from Citizens Advice, if you know where your local branch is, you can often drop in, not always. Since COVID, some branches haven't reopened. You should always be able to find an email or phone them up. There's also an online chat facility. If you want to do any of this, the way you do it is you go to Citizens Advice website, and in the search engine at the top, you just put in the word contact, and it will open up a page telling you everything you need to know about how to contact Citizens Advice for any further help.